take the mick out of them. This is quite nice, actually. If there's 8 of us in it, I don't mind people unmuting themselves and contributing. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on the sort of the beginning section. I'll talk about what I'm going to try and do as an ambassador. And then I'll probably pick up some points on education and then education on the chromatic harmonica. And then I wanted to look, the main body of this program would be looking at moving songs through 12 keys, and that's what I'll focus on. And I'll put some bits of sheet music in the chat as we go. There'll be lots of PDFs in the chat as well. Sorry, I'm just gonna close my window because I live next to a railway. There we go. So yeah, as an ambassador, I'm looking and sort of charged with trying to get Harmonica UK out there. And my vision of doing that has sort of, at the moment, got 3 aspects to it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. And like I said, unmute yourself and contribute, challenge me. I'm here to be challenged. My first sort of idea is really pushing the education front, as Sam was saying, looking at getting harmonicas into more schools. And I've spoken to people like Richard Taylor in the past, how he runs his school education programs. The thing that's sort of going on, when I first became a member of Harmonica UK, there's chat at the main AGM of getting ABRSM style grades, especially on the chromatic harmonica, which I think would be really, really great. And it also puts, say, a link to us as a body that informs major musical institutions as to how they can educate people about this and actually talk to experts and sort of inform some sort of course guide. I was thinking a lot about education because almost the fun thing about the harmonica is that we're still debating how you teach each other, what to do on it, where to go. We've got all these sort of help books, and that's great, but every instrument's got that. We don't have a solid core foundation. Even during the lockdown, I was seeing heated debates on the internet as to how do we work when we play the harmonica? Do we move our head or do we move our hand? Or what combination of the two do we do? And these debates aren't settled, whereas in other musical instruments, they've been around so long that the disciplines to how you play the piano or how you play a jazz guitar or a classical guitar are well established in the genres, and they are graded as a result, and you can have a set body form as well as a physical form and a discipline to actually go through on that. So looking at grades and getting that is something I'm really, really passionate about. The other thing I'm really sort of passionate about in an odd way is looking at the health benefits of the harmonica. The gentleman who phoned me and said he was going to come to this, Chris, was talking about the medical side of terms of breathing and relaxation. I'm actually doing a course in counseling and psychology, and I'm really interested in how just playing the harmonica helps you relax and chill out. And I've seen on various forums as well that people have got students with autism, and actually teaching them the harmonica has helped them relax and cope better in terms of dealing with things, positive things in the real world. So that's something I'm again keen to see promoted, and to sort of research myself. And I know Zidal have done various aspects about that with their plumonica. I know, all the names have gone out for me. Not Howard Levy. Lee Sankey's looked into aspects of that as well, and so has our Ben, our he's the vice president now at the moment. Yeah,
Yes, former chairman.
former chairman Ben. Why have I forgotten Ben's surname? Oh, it'll come back to me.
Hewlett.
Hewlett, that's the one. I always forget it. Hewlett Packard, that's what I remember. I always think of a printer whenever I think of Ben. Don't tell him I said that. um, yeah. Lastly, the main sort of thing that I'm trying to do is change the sort of perception and participation in the harmonica, is, bridging it open to new audiences and actually getting Harmonica UK seen by new audiences as well. Part of what I'm doing with that, with the magazine, is I'm doing an article called Around the World with 80 Great Harmonica Players, which is where I interview people online from other countries. Silio was one. I'm hoping to speak to Deng Zhilong tomorrow from China. Spoken to people in Canada and the UK, and I've got plans to do other parts of Europe, Scandinavia, Russia as well. And the idea is, by getting these key sort of influential players involved, hopefully they themselves might become ambassadors. But formally or informally, they'll have conversations that say, oh, yeah, I did a talk for Harmonica UK. They're this great institution. Then you get a whole group of new players in a different location interested in our organization. So that's my my vision for what I should be doing as your ambassador. And if you've got any thoughts of that, unmute yourself by all means. Post something in the comments. I'm very open. I'm not going to sort of be guarded on that. With my sort of view on education, I'm just going to share some things on the chat. I do find learning on the chromatic harmonica, which is what I'm going to talk about today, or if you want me to talk about the diatonic at the end, I'm happy to do that as well. But in terms of learning, especially on the chromatic, I find it so fascinating because we don't necessarily have this rigidity of teaching that, say, you would have on the piano or the guitar, or certainly on the violin or the flute or something like that. Therefore, finding resources and scoping your path through learning, I think, is really important. And you have to weigh up the resources of what you want to achieve and what you can physically do. And we're going to talk about that in a second. The sort of two resources that have been instrumental to me are, there's one and there's another. Let's just put the first one in the chat, is the International Course for Concert Harmonica, which is by Franz Kamel, whose name I always mispronounce. Do go ahead and download that. I hope that's zoomed onto the chat and you can all grab that. I've presented it before.
Can I just say, sorry, Sam, can you just say at this point that on the old website, we probably put these sorts of documents, but on the new website, where we won't be doing that. So if you want any of these resources, then you'll need to download them here and now.
You can email me as well. I'm happy if people are watching this on YouTube retrospectively, then do go ahead and email me. My email's on the site. Franz Kamel, I'm hoping you've heard of him. He's one of my favorite harmonica players. Ridiculously good. I was talking to Isabella Krapf at the Chromatic weekend about him because she knows the family. Alas, he's no longer with us. And she was saying, he really got good when he retired. He had about, all this free time on his hands. And as a classical musician, he would train, between 5 and 10 hours a day to get as good as he did on the harmonica. So wishful thinking. I wish I had that sort of time frame. And my previous sessions, like my session today, is really going, what can you do in the time available to you? This week I've been swept off my feet. I've barely had 30 minutes a day to practice, which has been annoying. But then I might have the summer holidays where I do get a couple of hours. So balancing your expectations there is a huge part of your practice regime. The other resource which comes up quite a lot is Jamie Aebersold's Introduction to Jazz. So if you're playing chromatic and you're more interested in the jazz side of things, there we go. I've put that in the chat for you as well. It's quite a common one that comes up, but I like it because it's just everything you'd know if you want to play jazz in one place. Get on with your life. What are your excuses to playing? And yeah, I think those two resources, if you get nothing else from this talk, having those two will hopefully give you something to take away and to practice. And even if you disagree with everything I say from now on. There's lots of ways you can divide your practice regime. And in previous talks, I spoke about, doing an opening warm-up, playing new repertoire, new songs that you might want to play, and then looking at old repertoire. So you finish on a high, you finish on songs that you're confident knowing. I also looked at learning, breaking down songs to pull out music theory from songs, which we'll do a little bit today. Back to my point on education and the fact that nobody can settle on one thing. Perhaps we can unmute at this point, but I'd love to know what sort of embouchures people use when they play. There's been so much debate about that in both worlds, and you often see pucker versus tongue blocked, and as if one is better than the other. I'm a funny player. I used to always tongue block on chromatic and pucker on diatonic, and now after talking to people like Sileo and stuff like that, they say, well, why think either or? Surely you should be doing both. And I was really astounded that Sai plays as fast as he does using pucker, but still get such a strong tone, and we associate tone with tongue blocking. So I've working at the moment to build that into my regime for my warm-ups. I always warm up the harmonica with a chromatic scale whenever I play. So the chromatic scale, you think 4 notes on one, 3 notes on two, 4 notes on hole three, and 1 note, just for argument's sake, on hole four. So you go. Now I've gone that as a. I prefer my left embouchure. Bear in mind the camera's making it mirror image. But now, as I'm warming up, I'm trying to go through all three techniques of going. Now go to pucker in the middle. Now go to my right, your left embouchure. You can already hear that my right is weaker than my left because I've always neglected it. But that's something that I've really been working on. And if you've got your notepad in front of you, then you probably do have a favorite embouchure like me. You know, my favorite is my left tongue blocked. That's what I always sort of lean on. But I am gradually expanding on the other two positions because I know at some point I'm going to need them. Would anybody like to unmute and say, yeah, I do find myself leaning on this, or are you all perfect students and you always practice all three when you play?
No, it's the old age thing. The very first person I had a lesson with was Roy Green.
Hmm.
Some of you may know
Mm.
him, fabulous player. And I learnt to pucker.
Hmm.
And when I had my lesson with him, he said that he was interviewed by a very good, a very professional player, and he didn't believe that he also puckered. And I said, well, I can't tongue block.
Mm.
I couldn't do it. I tried it, so I've stuck with pucker, and I'm sort of encouraged that the Toots and Brendan
Mm. Yeah.
Power and many others do,
Many.
but also a lot of modern players are
Yeah.
doing both and are recommending both.
Mm.
And I was very lucky enough to have a conversation with Jim Hughes,
Mm.
who I've been chatting to recently. And last week, he said, "Oh, well, I'll help you with tongue blocking."
Hmm.
And within 5 minutes, he had helped me. Now, don't ask me to demonstrate it now because I'll
No,
get
sure.
nervous. But I tongue blocked, and it was um, a different sound, let's
Yeah.
say. It would be difficult to play anything because I would need to build up my
Yeah. You
chops
do.
on it. But I
Absolutely.
definitely see the benefit of doing both. And I've also just bought myself a Suzuki compact chord, and
Ah.
just a little one, that size, and that will need tongue blocking if I'm going to play
Mm.
anything other than maybe half a dozen chords. So I can
Yeah.
see, I definitely see the benefit of being able to do both and to switch that technique. I think it can only
Yeah.
improve your playing. That's just my take anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
I
I'm
think
really struggling if I'm like hand on heart honest, because I've always tongue blocked to get a classical sound out of the chromatic. And I'm sort of used to playing phrases like that, but I'm used to puckering on the diatonic. So now I bring my pucker over, which is, I think you're right, very good for playing jazz. I do a jazz course, an advanced jazz course on a Friday, and they were saying your embouchure is very soft, which is why I was like, okay, I need to start puckering. But I'm so used to having an aggressive pucker on my diatonic. All that sort of stuff. And then I go, I just immediately choke the reeds on the chromatic because I'm going just so aggressively. So it's learning to pucker softly, which is really really bizarre for me. It's an
I
interesting learning
pucker,
curve.
yeah. I
Yeah,
pucker,
sorry. You
yeah.
pucker as
Sorry,
well, Scott.
yeah, I pucker. I've tried tongue blocking, but I
Mm.
always flood the harmonica out. You know.
See, I flood the harmonica when I pucker, so that's really interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
getting that balance. The other thing that I like about tongue blocking is that you can bring in octaves, and I love octaves. That's a chromatic scale there again. If you're not familiar with octaves, the easy way to do it is to smile. Almost look a little bit creepy. and then just jam the harmonica into your mouth and go. And then you just get your tongue in the middle. But that's obviously something that uses both airway possibilities from your tongue blocking perspective, and it's a great way of thickening up. From there,
I've
you
all,
start going into. Oh, go on.
well, I was just going to say, just to add a little bit. I've talked to people, and some people like to pucker because they feel they can get more shading on the notes with
Mm,
their tongue in their mouth
yeah,
and the
definitely.
shape of their mouth. So, that's something that I think is important. And the other thing that I've always been a tongue blocker.
Mm,
But I practice lots of ways of doing it. But I think if you practice pucker on a diatonic, which I'm doing that now, it's about muscles, right? It's about
yep.
muscles in your mouth.
Mm,
And I'm thinking, I would use the diatonic for muscle strength and mobility,
mm,
muscle mobility, and then
yeah.
play the diatonic or play the chromatic tongue block. It
Ah,
just
interesting.
it's kind of a package thing.
Yeah. Interesting. When I've been playing puckered on the chromatic, which is what I'm breaking into, I get fatigue in my lips, which I don't. I do 3-hour shows on the diatonic. We did one on Tuesday. My lips are used to that, but the chromatic for some reason is a different ball game, and I still haven't quite figured it out. But you're bang on articulation, which is another point in terms of especially things like vibrato. And like I said, the reason I'm choking when I pucker is because I'm used to bending or getting a real big pull on the diatonic. And getting that difference between vibrato and tremolo. Tremolo you do with more of a throat stutter, and vibrato you do with a very subtle bend. I'm still working on my subtle bends. That's probably a bit too much, but so I can do that tongue blocked there. You can get a little bit of an effect there, but you're right. Yeah, when you pucker, you can get more of a stronger grip on the note. Yeah, which is another sort of important consideration. And Kamel, in his little course that I've sent across to you, talks again about vibrato and the importance of getting the subtlety of that bend right. It's something I definitely need to work on. Oh, there's Joe. Yeah, the subtlety of that articulation is another factor to sort of to work on. Yeah, pushing forward, the I think one of the points for education on the harmonica is getting your chops going in all 12 keys. And hands up, honestly, chromatic players, who's comfortable playing in all 12 keys? Major keys? No, yeah, sure. It's something that I was teaching senior orchestra the other day, and I was talking to them. I was like, okay, let's all play C major, C sharp, D, E flat. I think it's something that you've really got to commit to. It's my personal opinion. Some people like to buy chromatics in different keys. Personally, I see that as taking a bit of an easy way out. And I think, previously I said, look at doing one scale a week. And when you do that one scale, you can look not only at the key, but the chords within the key. So if we're doing C, within that scale, you've got chords, by breaking it up, playing every other note. So C will be C major, C major dominant, major 7 there. But then you'll also have D minor, E minor. Doing that in every key is really crucial. Even if you're just doing one a week, and even if you're just doing it for 5 minutes at the start of your practice, that's such an important thing to do. It's something I need to do on the diatonic harmonica. I'm really interested in what Sam does in terms of playing diatonic in all 12 keys and using altered tunings to achieve that. And I'll quiz his brain at the end. And but it's also what Howard Levy's done is pick a diatonic and then play all 12 keys on it. And I think it's great for turning the grey matter over. And some of the exercises we're going to look at. Another thing I can sort of share with you is various scales you might want to give different levels of importance to, depending. I wasn't sure how technical we were going to go, so if not everybody's got all their major keys, we'll stay at that point. But But I think just playing in all 12 keys, even for your discipline, is just an incredible thing to do. I think, like I said, in terms of perception and getting other people and institutions like ABRSM to take this seriously, we need to say, well, look, we do play in all 12 keys. We can play what a flute plays. We've got, well, a flute is 3 octaves. We've got up to 4 octaves if you get a 16-hole. Where's my 16-hole? Down there. I think it's all sort of building a case of taking this instrument more professionally and really sort of changing the image of it, which I think is just really, really important, and I hope you do too. So yeah, setting yourself that goal. Maybe you need a piece of paper and you need to say, right, this week I'm going to master C major and all the arpeggios within it. I might look at the C blues scale as well. I might look at the C melodic minor, and I'll call that week 1. Then week 2, I'll do that for G is your next easy key to go to. And you can look online for the circle of fifths, and you can do all that stuff. For me, talking again about practice is that, as I've said, I've not got what a classical musician has, is 5 to 10 hours a day to go and practice. Somebody like Sileo or any of these other classical guys you'll see in Hong Kong, or Franz Kamel and these cats, they all had 10 hours a day to do that sort of stuff. If you talk to a classical pianist, when I used to work for Yamaha Musical Instruments up in London, and we used to get virtuosos come in all the time to try the pianos or try the cellos or what have you, and their practice regimes are ridiculous, especially in the classical regime. So you've got to sort of, working hard is one thing, but thinking smart is another. And having the combination of both, I think, can sort of help you save time. The greatest of the greatest is Charlie Parker, who I'm sure you're all familiar with in various capacities if you like jazz. And his thing was, again, practicing really long hours, but he would run everything through all 12 keys. And that's a practice that I've really, really sort of begun to enjoy when I do get the spare time, because it challenges you to think about, what note do I start on, what note do I end on, is that the relative minor note that I'm starting on going to the major, and what have you. And in the context of my teaching at school, some of you will immediately log off and never speak to me again, but we've already begun learning Christmas songs at school, because December's next month. We break up, 2 weeks into it. We need to have the Christmas carols ready now so that we can be ready for mum and dad. So I've been taking Christmas carols in my spare time and playing them through 12 keys, and I found that actually surprisingly rewarding. And one of the things I hope you find when you go through your major scales is you develop different patterns in your mind, your own mental patterns for, when do I have the slide in for this? So it's E major, for example, you might go. There's a whole, when do I put my finger in? When do I put my finger off the button to get that process going? And sometimes thinking in those terms really helps. The example I always use is F sharp major. Now, when you say to people F sharp major, they get chills, because when you look at the sheet music, it's the one with the most sharps, or sometimes it's presented with flats. And most instruments will go, God, right, plug in. This one's going to be difficult. But for a harmonica, it's quite easy. It's slide in on everything except B. So, and once you know that, then actually it becomes quite easy. Similar with C sharp or D flat. That's another sort of chiller for the woodwind section, but not for the harmonica. So developing those patterns in your mind, it can be very, very rewarding. I've got my next PDF for you. I was going to give you guys a few minutes to try this. I took the hymn. Apologies if you're religious or not religious. I'm not religious. I'm probably going to hell. But you can give this a go of actually trying to play a song in all 12 keys once I can find it. HarmonicaUK, come all you faithful. So let me just pull that up and I can have a look for you. So it's a relatively easy song. Well, it's a very easy song. Where am I? There we go. And just as you take it through each key, you'll get a differing pattern for yourself on the harmonica. And I find that really rewarding as a result. I haven't put the tab on. If you want me to send you one with the tab, I can make that quite quickly. But I'll play along with you and give yourself a few minutes, grab a harmonica and just give it a go. I mean, that would be bar 1, and then that would be line 2, and then, excuse me, that would be in A and B flat. On and on and on you can go. You can do this sort of all day until the cats come home. And at first it can be quite laborious to do, but what's really crucial to your sort of success at this is analyzing the intervals between each point. So starting on the fifth, well, we start on the root and then we go root to fifth. So that's a really important connection. And then we play around the second and the third and up to the fourth and then back. And that's all we're doing. We're not doing huge leaps at this point. But I really love doing this stuff, and it was quite rewarding for me the other day. So just, yeah, spend some time with that. That would be B. C. That would be in G again. D. Oh no, I just did that. B and E. Yep. Yeah, how do people find that? I'm just really sort of curious to sort of hear feedback. Yeah, does it find you actually sort of challenge yourself and think about what sort of key you're in, what scale you're in, and
It was
there's
all right
loads.
reading it. It's okay reading it and not rushing. I found that was okay.
Mm,
I think the challenge
mm,
is just take the sheet music away. So you've got to remember where
yeah,
you put it, and also um, where you're putting the slide in. And I mean, in the flat
mm,
keys with the, I always use a default to F with the slide in, and I tend to use
mm,
slide in 4 for C. But you've got
mm,
to think about it when you haven't got the sheet
mm.
music, which is my thing really.
That's what I think the fun thing is not having the sheet
Yeah,
music.
Yeah.
definitely.
I
And
think
just
you've
running
got
it.
one good example there, and that was your key of G,
Yeah,
because you don't have to use the slide in that version, I believe.
yeah.
No.
It
You know, so
gets.
you'll hear people say, "Oh, I can't. I can only play in C,"
Mm,
and but they can play in G because it's just as easy as playing C. They
mm,
don't realize that they could be playing a song in C that has tons of incidentals in it.
mm,
Much harder than playing a song in F or G, for
mm.
example.
That's a good one to do. One that I've been doing is, and then, and then from there, and going on and on, because that starts on a relative major and relative minor. That would be an A, and then what would be B flat. Would be in B flat, and then you've really got to think, what's my relative major, what's my relative minor key to posit it, and what's the intervals that I'm starting on. And I find that really, really challenging and really engaging. So that's been working a lot for me in my little half-hour practice, because it's something that instantly turns over the grey matter and makes me think, what's my scale for every key? and that's helping a lot. The other example I was going to go, I'm kind of hesitant about doing this because everybody always teaches the song Summertime in all of these lockdown versions. You must have had about 50 versions of Summertime. You're sick to death to it by now. Sam's looking at me like, no, you're banned.
I'm not. I'm not sick to death of it. I think it's the most
No,
wonderful.
I
And you
love it
can
as
play
well,
it so
Layla.
many different ways. It's
Well,
great.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
putting it in all 12 keys is my next way that you're going to learn Summertime. Yeah. I remember at the last physical Harmonica UK conference meeting, I ran a talk, and I ran a sort of a jam session, and I was just playing guitar and letting people play. And there was a gentleman, God bless his soul, he played it beautifully, but he said, right, I know Larry Adler's version of Summertime with the beautiful intro. Yeah. And he played it lovely, but that's in G, and I'd called the song in A, and then he went on to play it in D minor. So having this knowledge of keys and knowing all 12 keys is so vital, so that when you get somebody calls a key, that you're able to pick it up. I wanted to talk a little bit about Larry Adler's version of Summertime, and I can really see Sam switching off going, oh great, here we go. Another one. It's such an interesting piece because he starts, that little introduction is either, I'd put it either in C or in G. It's sort of ambiguous because he never plays the F sharp to let you know either way. But then he plays it in F minor, so A flat major, which is really, really interesting because he's again thinking about the intervals within which the song has been built. So Summertime starts on the 5th. That would be in A minor, which is what I normally play it, and he plays it. Because he knows it starts on the 5th, and he wants to get the full range of the harmonica. He wants the low C and the high C. And we know that Larry, at that point in his career, preferred 12 holes rather than 16. So he wants to go right down. Because he wants to get that low C range. So he wants to make the full use of the chromatic. So what key you pick and how it's related to the intervals at play and the melody are incredibly important. And it's something that you need to sort of structurally think about when you're picking up a new piece. Summertime's another great one that works, doing my little exercise in terms of shifting up either by a semitone or however you want to play it in all 12 keys. It's one that sort of naturally brings in the minor blues scale. If we go back to playing in A minor, everybody's favorite. I think I put the minor blues scale in C on that sheet for you. So where time is cracking on, I'll put Summertime. I'm pretty sure you will know it by now, but I'll put the sheet music in the chat just in case. And just give that a go, moving that around. You've got to think, you're almost playing over a minor chord triad. You're starting on the 5th and going to the 3rd, coming back through the 4th, and then going to the root, and then the 5th, an octave down. And so on and so forth. Give it a go. I'll put the music in the chat just in case, but I'm sure you already know it by now. Is that Summertime? Yeah, there you go. And where did I get to you? B minor. So that's D. So my next is... that would be E flat, A flat. You can fake it to an extent. Yeah, my mind's already going, but yeah, it's the end of the day. I had to run through a rugby crowd earlier, so I'm not very happy. Oh, sorry. For those of you that don't know, I live near Twickenham. So yeah, I live right near the stadium. So I had hordes of angry South African and England players outside of my house, and I was trying to get home. But yeah, give that a go and bring in the blues scale afterwards. You go on and you go on. It gives you a headache. Fantastic. How are you finding that? Just playing it from your mental models of what your scales are in your mind. Tumbleweeds. You're like my GCSE class. It's like, okay, girls, let's learn about seventh arpeggios. Silence. What do we need?
Well,
How are you
I'm
all
quite
getting on with
new.
your compositions?
I'm quite new to chromatic, so I don't have much of a mental model yet
Oh, okay,
of
cool,
the
cool, cool.
scales. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's worth like I said, doing one major scale a week is a really great discipline to have.
Y-
Sebastian, yeah. And
Yeah,
thinking of,
started to learn the E major scale because I want to play "Isn't She Lovely" Stevie
okay.
Wonder.
Nice. I know it's funny, there's different ways you can do it. You can also do exactly that. You can pick a song to go to the scale, E major.
Yeah, I can do it in E.
Hmm.
Mm.
Why am I
I can do it in
arbitrarily
E
using
and
A?
G. Yeah, yeah, I can do it in
Um,
E and G. Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
It's funny. That's another way of. I guess you could teach chromatic that way. Is which is almost conventionally what they do on musical instruments. Is I think of the four seasons when I think of E major. Which I haven't played for a while, as you can tell. But that might be another good sort of route into you, Sebastian, as well. Is finding songs that you really like in all 12 keys, and then learn them in their normal keys, but then over time start filtering them through different keys and different channels. And you will hopefully think of a slide in, slide out pattern for each one. So like C major and C sharp are the two easiest because C major is no slide and C sharp is slide all the time. Um, B major is the one I don't like the most. I don't know why. It's just always a bit finicky, and the last sharp, A sharp, always catches me out. But yeah, I don't know if anybody else finds that. Maybe that's just my own psychological block. Maybe I had some childhood trauma with B major that I don't relate, and I'm gonna have to talk to my therapist about. But yeah, um, other sort of mental models that I can sort of just think of the top of my head that might help you guys. The aspect of my playing that I always neglect is rhythm and timing, and I do need a sort of naughty slap on the wrist. I always neglect playing with a metronome, and I've suffered horrendously as a result. So I'm being very strict. And again, in my course the other day with the jazzers, I was saying that, I've been very slack with that. I'm always learning scales and what notes will fit, but not how to make them fit in terms of time and rhythm. But there's different ways you can sort of incorporate a metronome in, as they were sort of saying. You don't have to just put it 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, so it gives you a headache. You could put it on beat 1 of the bar just so that you've got the right time, and then come back in 1, 2, 3, 4. And that click they were saying, could actually just give you a lot of freedom in your playing, and something I need to sit down more with and work with. Those are the sort of the two aspects. On one side is you've got your notes, your choices of what you're going to play, and your rhythms of when you're going to play them. a lot of it then is developing your sort of physical individuality and your tone. And I think that goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning in terms of harmonica players actually looking at their posture, at looking how we hold the instrument, at how we move our bodies when we do, or if we move them interactively, do we move more heads than hands? Going back to that tongue blocking exercise at the beginning, when we were doing octave jumps. You know, that's a great skill to have, and that's doing, it's not so much tongue block or switch blocking, it's tongue pivoting. So my tongue's, this is where things get, you know, X-rated, but my tongue's coming out on the harmonica, lovely, and I'm pivoting between the two to jump from octave to octave between my two left and right tongue blocked embouchures. That's slightly different to the technique, which is on everybody's tongues at the moment, called corner switching, which is where you cover the, I'll try and demonstrate it within the scope of an octave. So you'd go. So I'm not moving the harmonica as such, or I'm slightly moving it, but I'm moving my tongue across to get a changing embouchure. That's something you might want to develop as your practice technique. You might want to put that in the beginning. It's quite useful for classical music. The famous part that uses is Bach's Cello Suite, which everybody plays, or the Vivaldi piece I was just playing uses it. You know, something like that. Getting that pivotal between the 2 points is something you can practice with your tongue switching. Again, I think a chromatic scale is great for that. And between the two techniques, I find corner switching is good within an octave. So going from C to C. But once you get past the octave, it's too much of a jump and too much to get onto your embouchure. So then you're going into that tongue pivot that I was talking about. And at that point, you're having to move, but it's giving you an anchorage to move it. How does it go? The Bach Cello Suite is the part that everybody uses because it uses both techniques. You go. That part, so you've got to have a combination of both the corner switch to go within the octave and then the tongue pivot, they call it, to jump over the octave and to get that. That might be something you want to just stick in for 5 minutes at the beginning of your playing and your practice. But yeah, getting back to my point, analyzing that physical aspect of how your body works and really being able to control it in a disciplined manner is something that you sort of never really stop learning, and I think something that really needs to be developed and codified. Ben Bauman, who's a great diatonic player, put it in another way. He was always thinking of the tone that he gets, which is almost a unique physical aspect to you. You know, you've got your tone that you're searching for. That's you, that's your body, that's how your technique and how you physically adapt with the instrument. And then he talked about tempo, which is, like I'm saying, getting your rhythms, playing with the metronome, no matter how much you don't like it. And then also, he used a really interesting word. He called being in the groove, which I really liked, which is that, you know, you can play 1,000 notes per minute, but if it doesn't fit the type of song that you're playing, it won't necessarily fix it. Or you can play long, really slow notes, but if it's on a fast thing and you need to keep up, then yeah. It's a very subjective thing, knowing the groove and knowing the scales that you need at that point, but I think it's something you can learn over time. Good. I normally leave the last sort of 10, 20 minutes to questions. So perhaps instead of just a Q&A, we can just have a little chat, because there's not loads of us today. I'd love to learn what other people's sort of practice schedules are like, and I think, as I've been saying, having a schedule is important. Yeah, do go ahead, share.
I practice an hour a day.
Yeah.
Roughly an hour. Yeah, no, and I've got Jim Hughes's book, that I'm learning
Uh-huh.
theory. And I was doing one of the two little tunes I try and practice as well, like Gabbro's oboe, and that's a summer wine I'm doing at the moment.
Mm.
So that's quite tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A great thing to do is to find a composer or a musician or a body of their work and learn that.
Okay.
I did, this is my vanity section now, so go out and buy and play. I did a really low budget tribute album to Scott Joplin a few years ago that was recorded in my ex's flat and on very sort of meager budget software. But that was such a great learning curve because I learnt loads of Scott Joplin tunes and got to see musical devices in context. And it meant reading piano music. So I can't read piano, or I couldn't read piano music. I can pick out the top line now, which is what you want to do. And it challenges you to find the melody within the song. During lockdown, I don't drink anymore, but during lockdown I was drinking quite a lot, and I made a tribute album to Jimi Hendrix and don't remember much of doing it. But yeah,
Wow.
that was that was more on the diatonic. Just
Well,
every
that's
now and
what
again a
I
Hendrix riff will
yeah.
come out, and I'll go, where does that come from? But yeah, that's on YouTube if you want to listen to that stuff from me. But find your own composer that you might like.
Gin and tonic, someone's put
That's
up.
Yeah.
like that.
Sound.
Yeah, definitely.
Love it.
You know, in practices, I find sometimes there's a real tension between playing songs and practicing, right?
Yeah.
Playing songs is kind of fun to do, and practicing can be fun or sometimes not so much fun, right?
Mm.
But it's the practicing that really helps with the playing of the songs, I think.
Yeah. I really get what you're saying, Peter. I'm really fond of this thing of playing, working hard, but also working smart. And whenever I've played the diatonic more than the chromatic, there's always been something that I've been after. So like, I've been playing this for much longer than the chromatic, but whenever I take it, there's something that I want to work in. So recently I was like, we don't really play the five blow, or I didn't play the five blow much in my blues. And I was like, well, is it just an awkward note that just doesn't quite fit in? Why is that? I mean, sometimes we use it as a passing note. Excuse me, this harp's about to go. Let's get a better one. Why don't we use the five blow? And then... So I very consciously thought, well, how can I make the five hole work? Well, it resolved very well to the five draw, which is the seventh in the scale. So you're going 6, 7. So you're going, in terms of thinking again in intervals of the scale, you're going 5th, 6th, 7th, which will work in a blues quite well. That's quite a nice lick. And I'm nowhere near the sort of advanced Howard Levy level, but that's what I've been doing with overblows as well. Whenever I pick this up, I'm thinking, how can I accomplish something specific on that? I have a specific goal in mind. Bringing the 5 overblow there. Bringing in the 6 overblow there. It's a very conscious decision whenever I pick this up. And I needed that sort of... I don't have that on a guitar, for example. With a guitar, I'll just sit there and noodle and then wonder why it's 6 months and I've not progressed. With the with the chromatic, I'm very driven by, like, the theories, I'm hoping you can tell, of, what is the scale for that? How do we analyze that? What are my chords for that? But I'm still learning how to relax with it, which I'm hoping will come over time, because, like I said, I gig with the diatonic all the time. Gigging on the chromatic is much rarer for me, and I think that's really where you bust your chops, playing with others and just getting some freedom with stuff. That's another thing. But yeah, I'd love to hear how other people sort of divide their working time and their approaches. We're back to my student section.
I try and split it between exercises, long tones, chromatic scales, I'm doing a lot on pentatonics at the moment, but doing them from different notes, different parts, and
Yeah.
also taking 2 or 3 notes and trying to create riffs from them. It's harder to do 2 or 3 notes in a whole section of different pauses and things.
Yeah.
And what do you say? And also with I've tried to make some of my difficult pieces that I'm learning. I'm trying to learn to they are that they're not necessarily jazz songs, but they've been written by a jazz musician. The solos on them, and they're quite hard on the chromatic. Hard for me
Yeah.
anyway. But I'm treating those as an exercise, so I'll take a phrase at a time and just keep breaking that down and use that as an exercise, and that's working. So I split about a third and a third, and always end with fun at the
Yeah.
end. Fun songs that I play, and so you always feel uplifted when you finish.
Yeah. I think
Sort
that's
of
so
stuff.
important. Yeah.
Definitely have fun with it, because
Yeah.
you can get too much into a rut
You can. Yeah.
when you're playing.
Yeah.
So I
That's
find
interesting what you said about breaking scales down.
Yeah.
We were soloing over that on Friday, and that's just such one. It's called
Yeah.
Bag's Groove. Very quite a fun, easy blues riff that you can pick up in F minor, and even that's got just like you said, Lena, just taking 2 or 3 notes of that riff, or the scale, the notes used in that riff, you can't really go wrong. Just picking on that. That's fun. That works. And then finding the blue note. That's another fun little thing there. That's a great way to break down a scale, and to just that the Jamie Abersol book talks about that as well. You get people like John Coltrane doing like the 1, 2, 3, 5 technique. To play very, very quick techniques, knowing that those 4 notes are always going to be sweet. So using those to play very, very quick changes in the music and play off the chords. Yeah. Anybody else want to share their sort of or ideas that they're having for creating a learning schedule?
One thing I've been thinking of lately is a lot of people start playing the harmonica and they kind of get discouraged because they're learning simple songs maybe, or songs that maybe aren't their favorites. And I've been thinking lately, if you have a group of people, like 3 people that play the harmonica, you can take a simple song but play it in in rounds where you stagger it.
Yeah.
And then together as a group of 3 people, now you're making something that even with a simple song sounds really beautiful, right? And it's motivating and keeps people
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah. Like I said, harmonica clubs in school is something that Richard Taylor does really well. It's something I want to sort of introduce and expand to where I'm working, the schools I'm working on. And I'm trying to get into adult colleges as well and sort of get that sort of stuff going. That would be great. I'm incredibly jealous of Geoff Watkins. He got one of my gigs that I was trying to get. So yeah. But he's a lovely guy as well.
Well, once people get playing and practicing regularly in 6 months or a year, you can really notice an improvement.
Definitely, yeah.
And they're happier, right? They're really happy that they can play something that sounds good.
Yeah. Managing expectations. I think even that, when I teach the guitar, I sort of explain to people that if you just do everything right, don't think now, think 6 months from now you'll have this. So Sebastian, you said you're new to chromatic, but just you've already up to E major, which is fantastic. So it's probably only be like another month or 2 that you'll have all the major scales in your head.
Well, I skipped all the other keys.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But still, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a diatonic player mostly. I got this chromatic 2 years ago for Christmas, and then I basically haven't really touched it. So yeah.
there's a fantastic, handsome chap on YouTube who does free chromatic harmonica lessons, going through all the major scales, all the minor scales, all the modes. It's called My Broken Harp or something. Yeah. Where's my copy link? I should chuck him in. So yeah, that's for free on there. That I did that years ago when I used to live with my parents, but I just made a YouTube and said to everybody, this is C major, this is C sharp, and some of those videos are quite laborious, and like I said, I've got no budget for high-end technical equipment, I'm afraid, but at least it's out there. They're not perfect, but they are out there. There's one where I talk about playing in all 12 keys, and if it helps you, brother, I really hope it does. Yeah. So
I think there's another
Yeah, I'll check
point
them out.
that even when people say, I can't play in other keys, if you play whole hosts of pop, even
yeah,
simple pop songs, and some basic jazz music and blues, it will modulate.
yeah,
It's very typical in the bridge. You're going to go into different keys. So
yeah,
having that ability, however you do it, and I don't, like most people don't like scales, but if
yeah,
you can make them fun,
yeah,
and take them, because you can't get away from it unless you want
yeah.
to play just in everything in the major key, or A minor or something. You can't. You're going to need your other keys at some point.
Yeah, like I said, for me about 8 years ago when I started taking the chromatic seriously, it was like eating vegetables. When you're like getting a 5-year-old to eat vegetables, it's like, okay, you're gonna have to do this, but it's good for you, right? And I've got that with the metronome now. I still hate the metronome. I don't know why. I shouldn't. I don't have timing issues on the diatonic at all. Maybe because I'm very used to playing with others, so I've developed a more natural time. But on the chromatic, I really, really need to knuckle down. Um, I entered took a shot at the Hong Kong chromatic harmonica competition that's being run, and the judges all came back and said, good tone, good knowledge, but really needs to work on timing. So yeah, it's bitten me now, and I'm
Yeah.
angry. So,
I
yeah,
always find the metronome puts me off a bit.
yeah.
You know.
This is what my tutor yesterday at the jazz course was saying, exactly that. Is saying actually it can really wind some people up
Yeah.
and be discouraging because it's too mechanic. So he was saying, yes, you can do. He had a really interesting concept, and I'll see if I can explain it to you. But he was saying you can go on things like iReal Pro and get backing tracks and stuff like that, and that's one thing. But the metronome can be really disciplining and get you thinking, when am I playing on beat 3, or when am I playing on the upbeat of beat 3, which is a fantastic skill to have. And what he was saying was, like I said, instead of playing 1, 2, 3, 4, just playing 1 and then just leaving the space. So getting a really low tempo. So say instead of doing 120 beats per minute, being 1, 2, 3, 4, just doing 60 beats per minute and playing on the 1 and the 3. So 1, 2, something like that, or an even lower tempo, like 30 beats per minute, which would just be 1, 1. So you're just hearing the first beat of the bar, or you could hear the second beat if you want to train yourself to hear the second beat. And he was saying what that does is just give you space, actually, to just be a little less disciplined, especially in your improvising, but to still come back in on beat 1 of the bar and to know where you're coming in. And the other thing he spoke about was almost having the imaginary band that's off stage in your mind, and this is quite good if you've ever been to a blues jam or something like that. Imagining that off stage there's almost another band ready to perform, and how they would be performing it and what they'd be doing. And if you've ever been to a blues jam and seen the other line of harmonica players waiting to get up, it's good to be thinking, what are they going to do that what am I going to do that they can't do, and what have you. But having that imagination of what somebody could be playing to that 1, 2, yeah, is almost imagining that a band is there with you is quite a creative component, which I found helped me in the last night session that I've had since that lesson. So yeah, yeah.
Can I be a total rebel and say that my practice regime is totally chaotic?
Yeah.
And it depends on what I need to do, really, because I'm in a duo, so I play harmonica but also play bass in that duo sometimes play bass at the same time as playing harmonica. So it's splitting my time with learning the songs, you know, let's just say without harmonica in, but then also playing lead and playing bass are totally different animals. You know, with the bass you sort of trying to get something nice and solid, whereas with the harmonica you're there sort of, you know, I don't want to use the word flowery, but you're sort of, you know, playing the melodies, etc., etc. Now there are a few songs that I play, you know, sing along as well. There's one where I learnt the full solo to Nightboat to Cairo, by Madness, and I mean there's a lot there, but I learnt that separate, and it was only when we started playing I thought this needs bass to it as well. So the bass is just sort of like, you know, first, third, fifth, just fairly straightforward, but it goes into some sort of strange keys. But there was one bit that I couldn't play on the bass and I couldn't play on the harmonica at the same time. So I just sort of stopped and just practiced that bar over and over again, slowed it right down and thinking, right, that bass note comes in on that particular harmonica note. So once it started going through it like that and looking at it in a very sort of technical sense, very, very fundamental, that's then when I thought, right, okay, this is working now. And of course, it's like with a lot of these things, it then becomes second nature. Once you've got that little, you know, it takes a while to get it into your head, but then, and you have this smug feeling of, right, yeah, managed to get through that.
Yeah, no, nice.
And a lot of, because in that solo there's a lot of like little triplets and all sorts going on, you know, and again, as I say, just I used to play with a keyboard player, so obviously, you know, he was doing the sort of the bass and rhythm, so I was fine. But when I'm playing with a guitarist, I've got to do I've just got to do the bass as well, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's but it's quite an interesting combo. So I'm rattling on a bit now.
No.
But it's quite it is literally splitting me mind in half of bass. I'm playing the lead, but you obviously have to be for it to sound good, you have to really have to work at the separate parts and then see how it works together. But
I wouldn't say that's a chaotic schedule though. It sounds like you're repertoire driven, so you're driven by the song that you're done, and then you're breaking it down to what do you need to know to play that song.
And then we went
into teacher mode of yes, you do fit into my model that I should be teaching you.
Well, I'll take that, yeah. And then as you say, Christmas songs come along as well. So I've got a repertoire of those. I've been meaning to go out the last few years to busk in Liverpool city centre, but I haven't quite managed it.
I really want to do that because apparently they make some good money in Liverpool. Everybody's up for their buskers.
Yeah. There used to be some guy, you know, what did he do? He just used to sort of made that sort of noise with a cardboard guitar, and he became a character, you know, and I think he earned a few bob, but sadly he died of a few years ago. Always a sad ending, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I say, you know, I mean, you're right. It's one of those things where I thought, wouldn't it be just great to be able to go out and just play, you know, carols, or you know, I've got some. I do a good version of Santa Baby, but I'll wait till the Christmas open mic, so you'll have to come along to that.
Definitely.
I play with our local ukulele group. There's about 20-30 people, and we go. I'm the only harmonica player. We're doing our Christmas gigs, but they're sort of WIs and church societies and various stuff like that. And it's really good fun. It's worth learning them. Yeah.
Like I was really surprised when I was doing these carols. I was like, these are just all in a major key, and they're so good at illustrating them. What did I play with Three Kings? Yeah. Um, it's so scalic. It's so good at just getting it into your head. That's why I thought it's a good place to start if you are going to think about moving them into different keys. Which is tough to put on you guys now and being like, learn them in different keys. Go now. But no, it's something you, like I said, just when nobody's looking, you can just go around the whole thing, and it really turns your mind over, and you start to see these patterns. And yeah, I think the even on the guitar, and Sam, you probably have this on the bass, is you do think in patterns as well as this is just the root. You get a visual patterns. Pianists have it, obviously, violinists play it. Even though we're not looking at the instrument, we're imagining it, but we still got the pattern of breathing in and slide, or breathing out, no slide, or if Sam is doing a bend at a particular pitch, he's aiming for the right pitch. Tell me more about your adjusted harmonicas. I find them fascinating.
Oh, the augmented tuned. Oh,
Yeah.
you actually sent one through, didn't you?
I did, yeah,
That's
because
right,
I gave it a go and I gave it up in like 10 seconds.
I'll have a look. This is me cupboard of stuff.
Okay.
Hang on a sec. I had a good tidy up today, so I'm. Where have we put it?
Because I think I don't know, Sebastian, you said you were a diatonic player first. I think every diatonic player goes through a phase where they go, I want to play chromatically, and I want to get those extra notes. That's what drove me to sort of start doing it, because I can do the overblows on the middle octave, but it gets a bit annoying after a while. No, I can't. All that sort of stuff. All that stuff. It's nice, but it's always a bit, I don't know, clunky to me. I'm not Howard Levy, I know, but
yeah, I try to avoid the keys that are not very convenient to play.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like to sometimes play some songs that are quite chromatic, like what's the Imperial March, Darth Vader's theme.
Yeah,
that's a hard one, but I feel like it works well in sixth position, but like you need overblows.
I can't think in the positions. I get to third position and I'm just like, give me a chromatic now. Just tell me what key I'm in.
Yeah, when I find a song like that, I go through all the positions that, starting from the easiest ones that might work, and I mean for minor usually I end after fifth position, but for that one sixth position worked.
Yeah, wow, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, well, I go up to fifth, so you're doing great there, Seb, if you're getting up to sixth position.
Very rarely.
But yeah, I mean, I did a session on Mini the Moocher in fifth position, and compared it to, I think it compared it to second position and third position. So, but to me, it's again, I have a split between when I'm playing diatonic, I think in where I am in the scale and positions, whereas with the augmented tuned, I can only play that with music in front of me.
Yeah, interesting.
So I can't improvise on the augmented tuned, but obviously improvise okay on a diatonic, and I think I think one of the issues, well, it's a blessing and a curse, is that certainly with the diatonics is that there's so many different tunings that people are coming up with. Will Wild, some of Brendan's crazy tunings. He's probably come up with, I don't know, a dozen or so different tunings that are commercially available. And I've used the natural and harmonic minors on the Oscars because that 30 odd years ago that's all there was in terms of non-standard tuning. But I tend to try and avoid it these days because I just think it's almost like learning a totally new instrument. And I don't really have time.
No, exactly.
I wrote a little tool that, I mean, I don't really use tabs anymore, but I wrote a tool that can transpose tabs to different tunings.
Oh, wow.
And keys, but only on diatonic.
Oh, right, okay.
That's really great.
Yeah. We'll post it in the chat if you're interested.
Yeah,
it's an online thing.
Yeah, that would be great. And
You
Peter,
know,
you
one thing that I use the library a lot, public library.
yeah.
And you know, for the last couple of years, I've been looking for just the things that Sam's been talking about today. You know, about the cadence and the scales and the
Mm-hmm.
arpeggios and stuff. And just this week, so 2 years of kind of keeping my eyes open, I found this book,
Uh-huh.
and it's called Scales, Chords, Arpeggios, and Cadences.
Amazing, yeah. All you could ever need.
and you know what? It's got everything in it for
Yeah.
every key. You know.
Wonderful.
So now I got to go photocopy crazy
Yeah.
and copy them all. But you know what? It's finding part of it's finding the tool that works for you, and I think you've kind of talked about that, Sam.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, your mental model. Like you said, I think I agree with Sam. You can have too many mental models if you start getting into alternative tunings. That's why I only play a chromatic in C, because if you've got a chromatic in G, I know it still works the same, but it doesn't work the same, if that makes sense. Like, I don't play with capos on the guitar or alternative tunings because it hurts my head after a while. And yeah, yeah.
I think also it's so. I don't think it's so difficult for someone who's quite experienced, because I know that players like Philip Scher, he likes playing in the odd keyed chromatic, but he's so good anyway.
Really likes.
And I think if you're a beginner learner or early learner, let's see, if you've got just a few years under your belt, you get so confused by it. And I think it goes back to your trying to learn in all keys, or as many keys as you can.
Yeah.
I mean,
chromatic anyway, maybe. I can understand diatonic.
I've run, well, we're starting up again, but it's called Blues Harp Whirl, in just some last Sunday of every month prior to lockdown, where we get together, about a dozen of us. And what struck me from early on is you get people who are understand a bit of theory. I think probably I understand theory quite well, relative to a lot of, say, blues players. And there are people who, when you start talking about, let's play in third position, it's like, just don't get that. I only play in this position.
Yeah.
But they play really well. So I always think that actually, if you're a great player and you've got no theory, brilliant. But then I always think, but if you did know a little bit of theory, you'd become a better player. But it's horses for courses. It's what people are happy with. And I think the way my mind works, I'm always, as you say, it's all about mental models and trying to think, there's a flat 5 there that will go over that note, and so I'm constantly thinking. Certainly, if you're playing an ask at a jam, right? This is the song, and you see what the chords are. If it's a major song, obviously the first thing you think is, right, if I'm going to improvise over that major pentatonic,
Sure.
That's my comfy pair of slippers, Whereas, I mean, I remember listening to some guy improvising over some country music, which to me, it always sounds very major. A lot of the country music, and then I thought, please, he's playing in second position. I thought, please don't play that 5 draw, so the dominant 7th, and he did, and it just changed the whole mood of the piece, because it was that sort of, it just sort of for me it clashed. And it was just in my head, please don't play it, and he did. It's like but perhaps other people don't notice it. It's just I'm probably a little bit OCD-ish, and
you're refined and cultured, I think. You're fine. Yeah.
What, from Liverpool? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually born in Essex, so it's even worse. Talking about practicing timing, I've just actually seen my timing is awful in terms of a host.
That's all right.
I think Strictly's on in a minute, actually. I'm surprised my daughter hasn't knocked on the door and said, get the pizza in the oven, Strictly started. So, okay, I think that has been an absolutely brilliant session, and I think it's the first one we've had which is been more like a a discussion, and for me that's worked. That's worked really, really well, and everyone's contributed. So sometimes less is more in terms of, sorry, should say fewer, shouldn't I? Fewer is more. For these lockdowns, and I think I do look at 30 people turned up, but then I think what we've seen today has been very, very sort of interesting. So thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you all. It's been great, and email me if you have anything else want to touch base. It's been nice meeting you all.
And I think it's next week. It's Rochelle. So she's doing her session, and then 2 weeks after that will be our Christmas open mic. So I'm expecting some. So you
Santa baby.
I'm getting all tingly, Sam. Stop singing that, will you?
I wish I could attend Rochelle's, but I think I'm celebrating my birthday on that day.
Oh, happy birthday, Sebastian.
Oh, thanks.
Well, it'll probably be recorded and put on YouTube, assuming Sam's happy for this to be put on YouTube. And see you next time, and thanks everyone for dropping in.
Good to see you guys.
Okay. Bye. Bye.